A bit about the visibility that you have for the business. Where's the confidence coming from to raise your full-year EBIT forecast today?
Now, if you take a look at the Q2 numbers and the outlook we see, based on our strong order intake that we saw, especially very confirming on the industrial side, but as well in the elevators, where we across all regions had a very strong order intake everywhere, even unit-wise increasing in China, Asia, net positive, so record high. That's giving us a clear outlook, and what we see in the Steel and Material Services division is confirming on that side as well, driven by the price hikes that we saw and that negatively affect our cash flow. But on the other hand, on the EBIT and profitability, give us a good outlook through the year, and that's why we could be a bit more confirming compared to what we had previously out.
So if any investors are worried about a slowdown in China, what is your work in China telling you? Should we be worried about slower China?
Well, what we see, our two biggest divisions we have there is components technology, so the auto sector, especially light vehicles, continues to be pretty strong. So we're growing nicely in China. And the second thing we see in elevator is, in our case, yes, there is some price competition, but unit-wise, we keep on growing pretty nicely. So overall, we're not that much concerned about China.
Can I ask you about your debt-to-equity ratio? I see that it's risen to 250%. Put that in some context for us. I understand that you have some agreements with banks not to exceed certain levels on debt-to-equity. So give us those numbers, and what are your intentions? Do you plan to bring that debt-to-equity ratio down?
Well, clearly we have gearing covenants that are only tested once a year, which is year-end, end of September. Now, the gearing ratio is pretty high today, but you have to see that we had to reflect already our sale of Brazil for our Brazilian asset in the books, which was a loss of about 900 million. But the cash is not yet there as the deal is not closed. So 1.5 billion coming out of that later expected in this year. Significant step. On top of that, seasonally, our cash flow is always stronger in the second half. The first half was more negative due to the increases in the raw material prices. So we had specific, not lasting things there as well. So therefore, we're confident that we will make it. So strong cash in the second half, and the cash inflow from CSA will make it.
Can you give us an update? So you don't seem too concerned on that front. Can you give us an update on your talks about the joint venture with Tata Steel? What specifically is holding things up? There's been a year, more than a year since it was announced, of course. Is it around unions? Is it politicians? What's the biggest stumbling block?
I mean, we have always been very clear in our communication here that what we need to see, and what we're talking about with Tata as a joint venture on flat steel activities now, and that clearly the pension issue in the UK is an important thing in these discussions. And you can see that a lot of progress has been made, and significant progress had to be made. I mean, Tata had to sell long steel business. They sold off their specialties, so that was a big part. And working on the pensions, as you can read in the media, is not easy, and this BSPS plan is a big one. So I see them moving forward, but there is nothing that can be expected very short term, and couldn't be even a year ago, because significant hurdles have to be taken. It's not just the talks between them and us.
So do you have any visibility, Guido, on when this will be closed? Any guidance for investors on that?
No, that's what I cannot give, because I'm not the leading force there. I mean, you see that Tata is talking about the pensions in the UK, and we have to see their outcomes, and therefore we will continue our talks in a very confidential and good manner, but we have to see these outcomes before we can finally judge.
Some investors are wondering what plan B is if the Tata deal doesn't go through, Guido. Are you having conversations about any other kind of strategic options for ThyssenKrupp, selling other parts of the business, perhaps if this particular activity doesn't come through?
Look, first of all, I think we have clearly demonstrated with the sale of Brazil as well that we're well on track with what we wanted to deliver, and we had to deal with much more complex and negative situations in the past. And we have, I think, proven that we diligently do our job and find the best creative solutions for the company. Now, as I already stated on the Tata transaction, we're moving ahead. It's going in the right direction. Now, we need to have the patience to see what the outcome is. The biggest underlying threat for us is what is happening in the steel sector. A consolidation is needed. We have overcapacity in Europe, and this is what we're trying to address. And this offers definitely from the outside in the biggest opportunities there, and we're working on it. So I think there is no time to talk about anything else.
Okay. When you mentioned Brazil, you've done that deal, but you mentioned that the cash isn't quite in yet. When exactly do you expect to close the disposal of the Brazilian assets then? I guess by the end of September, given what you said about debt.
Yes, but we're depending on decisions that need to be taken by the Brazilian regulator and some other stuff. We have already received approvals in Germany and in the U.S., and that's why we depend again there on others, and we need the approval of the antitrust authorities.